All right, and we are live, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to day 3 of ConNooga. It's the last day, but it's still a lot of stuff happening. It's going to be a good day today. We've got another interview for you. Our last one didn't have any audio, so we're doing it again. But this time, everything is working properly, and hopefully you'll get to hear some really cool stuff. So I'll pass it over to Levi.
Whew, good morning, folks. It's a beautiful, brisk Sunday morning at ConNooga Day 3, like you said before. A little chilly outside. I don't think I've had enough coffee, but hey, you know what? We're still here. We're still thriving. And I'm with the ever-fantastic Eddie Deason. And you might know him as the voice of your childhood for a lot of you out there. Some of you know him as Mandark. Maybe you know Rockadoodle. There's even the Brave Little Toaster. Those are good ones there. But you are so much more than just a voice actor. You've had an illustrious career for quite some time. Am I right here?
Thank you, Levi. Yes, you're very kind. Thank you. Yeah, I've done a lot. I started on camera. I did on camera. Grease was my first movie, and I did on camera till 1990. Then I did a little. I don't think they even exist anymore. It was a radio spot. I did my first radio spot in 1990, and then I signed with a voiceover agent. I started churning those out. Then I got into cartoons and branched out, and it ended up when we got all the way to the Polar Express.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a blast from the past right there.
Yeah, really.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, what would you say was one of your earlier roles that you did?
Well, Grease was my first. I lucked out. Grease was my
Absolute
first movie,
first.
so that was a great one. That was so much fun. I was just writing about it today on Facebook. Today is the birthday of Annie Travolta, John's older sister.
Is it?
No, on the Grease set, she would hang out with us during the dance. The dance scene took forever. We were filming in there forever. There was a meat processing plant like next door. So the stench would come in. So they couldn't open the windows. We had to keep the windows sealed for the whole shoot. We were there, it seemed like forever, weeks and weeks filming that. All the windows closed, the middle of summer in LA. So it got as hot as 116 degrees. Several of the extras and dancers fainted, literally.
I bet.
Michael Tucci, member of the T-Bird Sonny 3D, he fainted and he was rushed to the hospital. He had to go to the hospital, it was so hot. But on the bright side, Annie Travolta was a doll. She was one of my best friends on the set. Now, I don't think she's in the movie. Ellen Travolta was in, you'll see her briefly in the movie, she's a waitress. And then she's going, oh, there's Danny and Sandy on TV. You'll see her for a second. I said hi to her for a minute, but Annie I would talk to like every day, and she was one of my best pals. I don't think she was in the movie though, but she would just come and hang around on the set, and we were real pals. She was just a delightful, sweet girl, and she made every day fun, just talking to her every day. I talked to her much more than I did John. I didn't see John that much, but I'd see Annie all the time.
Oh, how delightful.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that. That's a fantastic story.
Yeah. So happy birthday, Annie Travolta, if you see this. We love you, Annie.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
Let's see here. So something I love to ask people there is,
Sure.
were you somebody that you would say had like the acting bug as a child? Were you aware that this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I started, Levi, I fell in love with the Three Stooges when I was a kid. They were my first comedy heroes. Curly Howard's my favorite comedian. He was when I was a kid, and I remember doing curly spins on the floor, when I was about 5 years old from the earliest times.
Yeah.
And, I love this guy. I worship this guy. He was a genius. And the Three Stooges set the spark, definitely. And then it branched off, I love Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. I love Daffy Duck. I love Laurel and Hardy. Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Woody Allen I love, all these guys. That's my life, that's what I base my life on. These are my mentors, They're all so much better than me, but I worship them. And, you aspire to be as great as these guys. Every baseball player aspires to be like Babe Ruth, or every football player wants to be like Tom Brady. So I aspire to be like these greats, And I did the best I could, and I got a few good movies in there. Yeah.
Right. That's so fantastic there.
Yeah.
Trying to think there. One of the earlier roles that you had done, I think was called "I Want to Hold Your Hand."
Yes, I Want to Hold Your Hand. That was the first film Bob Zemeckis did. Bob Zemeckis is my favorite director. He did I Want to Hold Your Hand. I play myself. I play a crazed Beatles fan. It's about 6 kids that go to see the Beatles in New York on the Ed Sullivan Show in 1964. And I'm a guy that they meet there. I was Ringo Klaus, I played. The closest role ever to me. And I'm going to be at Beatle Fest this year in New York at the end of March 28th, 29th, 30th. The Metro Fest, the Beatle Fest, I'll be there. And they're going to screen I Want to Hold Your Hand, and I'll do a Q&A with the audience. So that's going to be really fun.
That does sound delightful.
Yeah.
So having done a film like that was very close to your heart.
Yes, absolutely. I loved it. Yeah, I know Paul McCartney saw it. I know Paul saw it, and supposedly he liked it. And Paul did an imitation of me. You'll see me in the movie, okay? They go, I stole this from the Marx Brothers. Are you a Marx Brothers fan?
I am. I
okay,
love
there's
Marx Brothers.
There's one movie, I think it's Animal Crackers, and Groucho goes, Chico goes, ask me something, and the answer come back. And he goes, ask me something else, and the answer come back. Chico does that bit. Now you'll see I Want to Hold Your Hand. You'll see me do the same bit. I'll go, I'm the greatest Beatles expert in the universe. Ask me any question about the Beatles. Go ahead, ask me anything. And I go, ask me, I'll go, ask me who's the youngest Beatle, and the answer come back. George. Ask me who's the oldest Beatle, and the answer come back. Ringo. And I do do the whole shtick. I stole that, but you'll see me do that routine in the film.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's funny you talk about stealing shticks and whatnot.
Right.
There's like the history of comedy. I love to talk about like somewhere these origins come
Sure.
from. Whereas we're copying these techniques. These guys invented it.
Yes, absolutely right. Yeah. Now, when I want to hold your hand, I invented a joke. I maintain. I'm the first one to use it. It's been used 1,000 times since. But there was a joke. Steven Spielberg. This is the first one he ever produced. Steven and I would walk up and down the hallways and we'd bat around ideas. We would go, "Do you think this would be funny? Think this would be funny?" We'd talk about scenes and shtick. And I came up with the joke. There's a joke. There was a great old character actor named Dick Miller. He played a policeman in the movie. And Wendy Jo Sperber and I take over the room. Wendy Jo's my comedy partner. She's my best pal in the movie. We take over a room and we're, ransacking it. And the police break in. And Dick Miller goes, "Now I got you, little shithead." And I go, "Who you calling little?" And that was the joke. And Steven laughed. I made Steven laugh. He went into Bob. He goes, "Eddie has this joke. Tell him the joke." And I told Bob the joke, and they let me use it in the film. So that was a good thing. Bob Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg, the two best directors I ever had, they both let me ad-lib like crazy. They let me you'll see me, I did a movie the next year called 1941, and you'll see me on the Ferris wheel with Murray Hamilton, who was the mayor in Jaws, and my dummy, Little D's they called him. But we were there, and they let me ad-lib. Steven would let me ad-lib stuff, I go, "Oh, scared of heights, huh?" And a lot of this stuff I just made up, and he would let me do it. You see me walk in, and I bump my head on the Ferris wheel. I made up that shtick. And Steven, he was a very giving director. He let you do what you want, And he let me very free. I don't know if he did it with all actors, but he let me be very loose. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that joke. I have seen the use of that technique. And he's like, "Who you calling little?"
Yeah.
Focus on the wrong verb.
Yes, but I don't see it in any movie or TV show before that. I think that was the first time it was used.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I can't think of an older like black and white reference or anything like that.
Yeah.
Nothing there, but that's a good one there. You a little claim to fame beyond all the other claims to fame.
Yeah, really. Thank you.
I love shticks and I love history. You mentioned Buster Keaton and Groucho Marx. They're some of my favorites.
Yes.
Charlie Chaplin, fantastic comedians.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I never got too into Harold Lloyd. Harold Lloyd was okay. He had a couple good films, but Chaplin and Keaton I'm much more into, and I love them more. Yeah, but Harold Lloyd was very good. Yeah.
Let's see. Charlie Chaplin is such a great example of like silent acting. He did some speeches, but he did so many different silent ones there versus like the concept of body acting. We're talking about Curly with what he did there. Again, also a pioneer and a father in his own genre of body acting comedy.
Yes.
Others did it. I think he perfected it.
Yes, Curly's my favorite. I think he's the greatest comedian that ever lived, and this is why I think so. Levi, okay, you got Buster Keaton, you got Charlie Chaplin, great physical comedians. Curly was as good a physical comedian as them. You look at his moves, the curly shuffle, the curly spins, and just the moves he did. He was like a ballet dancer. He was like Chaplin in that sense. He was very graceful. He was a fat guy like Jackie Gleason, but he had a grace about him, which is that's pretty hard. That's nothing. Keaton and Charlie Chaplin were both slim guys. Chaplin was like a ballet dancer. My analogy was I always thought Charlie Chaplin was like the woman. He was kind of like Fred Astaire, feminine, graceful. He had graceful sleep moves. Buster Keaton was like the man. He was like Gene Kelly. He was like he'd do strong moves. He would do these falls and like a man. That was kind of the difference between them. Curly was kind of in between. Curly did strong, powerful falls, but he had a grace about him. You'll see a couple times he'll do spinning moves, and he's very graceful about it. Even the curly shuffle, it's kind of graceful,
Yeah, it's funny talking about the father-in-law. He had kind of like a toddler thing going on with the types of antics that he would
Yes,
perform.
exactly right. He was like a man-child, an overgrown man-child. And the other difference, this is why I consider Curly superior to Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. Curly was a great verbal comedian, too. Curly would tell jokes, and the stuff he would say was hilarious. He'd say these funny lines, whereas Keaton and Charlie Chaplin didn't really say that much funny stuff. They were more, this is the physical stick, that was pretty much the act.
Yeah, timing is half the joke itself.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Curly had this innate timing. People always say they compare Curly to Shemp, Incredibly, some like Shemp better than Curly. Shemp was a good comedian. He was an adequate comedian, and he had some funny moments. But Curly's like in another realm, This is like, Levi, it's like the people I meet at the show. Steve will ask my brother Steve, he'll go, "Do you like Grease better or Grease 2?" And occasionally a person will say Grease 2, which is unfathomable to me. Grease blows Grease 2 out of the water. To me, that's like saying I like The Wiz better than The Wizard of Oz. I think Grease is that much better than Grease 2. Grease 2 is a good film. It's not a bad film. But Grease is a historic, great classic musical. Greatest soundtrack ever. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the earlier, pre-career kind of moments there. You said you got into it when high school, college, acting classes.
Yes.
Talk to me about those years.
Well, I was in high school. This was February 27, 1974. This was a rigged event in the auditorium. All the school was there in the auditorium. I was at Allegheny High School in Cumberland, Maryland. Everybody was there, including the girl I had a crush on. Her name was Deneen Furstenberg. I loved that. Was her real name. It sounds like a character from a comedy movie. Her name was Deneen Furstenberg. She was the most beautiful girl, great legs. I used to look at her legs in science class. She was so cute, but it was rigged. They go, we're going to get somebody from the audience to conduct the band. Now, they knew I was the class clown, so it was rigged. They go, they have my name, and they say, where's Eddie sitting? He goes, in G37. So they go, we're going to draw a number. Okay, whoever's sitting in G37, come up. And it was me, you know. I ran up. They said, pick a song. I picked Pop Goes the Weasel. So they played Pop Goes the Weasel, and I conducted real crazy. Then I jumped high, clicked my heels, and did a pratfall on the floor. And the audience just went bananas. The audience loved it, you know. So afterwards, I got a taste of my groupies. A bunch of the girls at school were crowding around because I was a big shot. I was on stage. And I saw Deneen looking at us. So that was like my dream. That was as close I ever got to going out with her. She was a beautiful girl, but I saw her looking there, so I felt really good. I go, this girl I love at least sees me being a hero to these other girls. Yeah. I had one date. My whole school career, 12 years, including 2 more years of kindergarten, I had one date. The junior-senior prom. Nora Whitman was a senior. I was a junior. She asked me to the junior-senior prom. And she was a lovely girl. We went. I bought her a corsage. That was one date in all my years in school, yeah. So that's why I became a comedian, you know.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Comedy really makes it go around there.
Yeah.
You talk about, you know, changes like that. It's a kind of a cultural divide nowadays. It's so different because it's become so much more socially acceptable to be a nerd or a geek or just funny, you know.
I think absolutely you're right.
There's so much less ostracization there.
Yeah, whereas we got picked on. I remember my early days going to school, this guy named Greg Webb. There was 3 Webbs. There was Mike Webb, Greg Webb was the middle one. He was like a neo-Nazi, mean guy. Tommy Webb was a nice kid. He was my friend. But every day going to school in the snow in Cumberland, Maryland, Greg Webb would take my face and smash it in the snow.
Ooh.
And, you know, and the guy was twice as big as me. So what do you do, you know? So I remember the first day I go, oh, that was refreshing or something. I tried to make him think I hated it, but I hated it every day. He would get my face and push it in the snow, yeah.
It's a little different nowadays, thankfully.
Yeah, you can report bullying. Kids are more protected now. But in those days, you pretty much had to fend for yourself. So if you're a nerd or a weak kid, or even, by the way, I've talked to girls. Girls, they go, no, you don't know the problem of mean girls. They go, some of these girls, you know, a shy girl or maybe a nerdy girl who's not as pretty as the others, they say the mean girls would be really cruel to them. They say they're meaner than any guys could be. So women went through it too. Females went through it too. Yeah.
Right, different kind of thing, but just as bad.
Yeah, yeah. It's cruel. It's just part of the human race for whatever reason. Sometimes the superior people pick on the inferior people, whereas in a decent society, the superior people should protect and look over the inferior people.
You know, I think that's absolutely the right way to go about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you about like getting into more of the animation. You said after like 1990, it kind of shifted for you there.
Yes, I started doing voiceovers, and I got a cartoon, Dexter's Laboratory. It's probably the best thing I ever did.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I played Mandark in 25 episodes, and I made the rounds of the Cartoon Network shows. You know, I did Cow and Chicken, I did a Johnny Bravo, you know, Fairly Odd Parents. I did appearances on all those shows, you know. And Dexter, I did 25, and I'm in the SpongeBob movie they put me in. You see Tim Conway and I are seagulls. Tim Conway and I are seagulls. You see us in the end credits, and we talk to seagulls. So that's the only movie I remember in the end credits with.
Yeah, another great actor. Fantastic.
Yeah, oh, I loved him. I did a couple of his Dorf videos. He was the nicest guy in the world, sweetest guy in the world.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I find most voice actors predominantly pretty cool, pretty chill people.
Yeah, very cool. And also the showbiz community. Occasionally there's assholes or there's jerks, you know, in showbiz, but mostly they're nice people. But you're right, the voiceover community is particularly nice. We're very close knit. It's kind of an insular community. We're kind of shut off. It's harder to break into that community, than acting. Everybody breaks into acting, but voiceover is kind of a closed circle.
Yeah, I joke. I said there's 20 actors in voice acting, and I'm like, oh, look at that new game. Oh, it's Nolan North. I know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's him again.
Exactly.
Oh, that's Troy Baker.
Right.
It's one of like 5 guys.
Right, exactly.
And they all do fantastic for the record.
Yeah, they're very versatile. Whereas me, I'm different. Excuse me, Levi. I do just the one voice. I'm kind of like the girl on The Simpsons, Yardley Smith.
Yeah.
You know, Dan Castellaneta and Nancy Cartwright, they do several different voices. Dan does like 10 or 15 different voices. I do just one voice.
Right.
And
but you
Lisa
do it
on
well.
The Simpsons, well, thank you so much. But Lisa on The Simpsons, that's the only voice she does, Yardley Smith. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right, and like, you know, it's funny you mentioned that because it kind of goes 2 ways. There's the guy who can do like 20 different concepts, and then there's one who has such a unique sound that it could only be that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of in that category. And then there's a third category, just the straight readers. There are some people, you know, women or men, they'll narrate books, and they just have a lovely voice, you know. Like my mom was that way. When I was in kindergarten, my mom in first grade and all, my mom would come to our class and read us books, and she had this soothing, smooth, nice voice, you know. And if you have that, that's valuable in voiceovers too.
Yeah.
You can do, of course, books, you know, reading books, you know, books on what are they called? electronic books.
Yeah, ebooks and such.
Yeah, ebooks, exactly. Or you can just read, copy in a commercial, you put this lotion on your face or whatever, and they narrate it, whereas it makes the person want to buy the product,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now something else I wanted to talk about besides, your animation field there. Some people might call it typecasting, but I think it's a specialization there, and it's a reflection of not only your ability as an actor. I've mentioned it before. Is that I think that you're very funny, you're very kind, very sweet, very great person that I think would be a fantastic friend. You portray people who do not represent these very often there, but I think that's a sign of how good you are as a performer. There is that you convince people wholeheartedly that that is real.
That's very kind of you. Thank you for saying that. That's a very nice. I'm trying to think of an example of that. Somebody, kind of this. This isn't necessarily that. Vincent Price was not necessarily a mean guy, but he played like a sadistic guy, a cruel guy. Yeah, he could torture women or put him electrocute men. He does, and then I met him in real life. He's the sweetest guy ever.
I'm told he's a goofball.
Yeah, he was a little bit of a character. And in fact, it's funny, Levi. The last show we did was his daughter, Victoria Price's daughter, and we met her, and she was just like Vincent, sweet, lovely. She made the whole. Some people you meet for like 5 or 10 minutes, and they make the whole show of the weekend. And she was that way. She was just so sweet and warm and so kind, And I met her, and it was such a joy. And I met Vincent years ago, and I'm fanning out, geeking out. Mr. Oh, I love
Absolutely.
you. I love you and Dr. Goldfoot in the Bikini Machine. I'm telling him all this, and he goes, "Oh, you're an actor too, aren't you?" I can't do Vincent Price. You're an actor too. I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, you're good too." He said in that Vincent Price voice, By the way, I always thought he was gay. I always say because he seems so gay, but he was married with a kid, so maybe he went both ways. I don't know what, but he had a lovely daughter. Supposedly, he was very happily married. So who knows?
Right, works out there.
Yeah.
He's such a wildly talented. He's a unique voice. Like again, I couldn't imagine playing Porky Pig. That would never happen. But the Vincent Price voice is so marketably unique.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Just a nice guy and all, but again, he played like a sadist or a cruel scientist in so many of his movies. He played a villain.
Yes, he often was that, it's just like, beware, something wicked this way comes.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of guy.
Yeah.
And an example of something that was so unexpected. For years, I thought that the song Thriller by Michael Jackson sampled something of some horror movie of his. No, that was an original script that he came in just for that song. I was like, what movie is that from? It's not. It's literally just for the Thriller video.
Okay, I love that. That was great.
I didn't have a
great
clue about that for
Thriller
years.
album. You make me nostalgic for the great music of our generation.
I know, right?
I think the 80s is when I stopped liking music, and Michael Jackson's one of the... I was there at the Super Bowl, his Super Bowl performance,
Oh, yeah.
The game itself was a dog.
I remember that one.
Yeah, the Cowboys won 52-17. You don't remember anything about it. But Michael Jackson coming up, it's like seeing Jesus himself. The audience went berserk. And then he delivered. It's like, how can the guy top a play? And he delivered the greatest show ever. He's like a young elf. Nobody can dance like this guy. He danced, he sang, he was unbelievable.
He really, they call him the king of pop for a reason.
And by the way, Levi, compare it to this year's Super Bowl show, the halftime show. How crappy that was.
It had a completely different connotation. There's a very different style to it there. Now, personally, if you know the story behind some of the things he was talking about, it has some deep meanings there, but that's a different conversation for another day.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it's like there was a plot going on behind what he was trying to talk about.
Well, I love the Super Bowl. I've made a lot of bets on my Facebook page, and I won a ton of money. So I didn't even care about the halftime show this year. I'm waiting to collect my bets. I've only collected one check so far. Hopefully, when I get back home, I'll get some more checks.
Right, so you were smart enough to bet on the Eagles.
Well, you know what I thought, Levi? Okay, the Eagles won their previous game by 32 points.
Right.
What was the team? The Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs.
The Chiefs won the game on a controversial call, remember? They made that call and people thought it was a crooked call. So go, wait a minute, the Eagles are red hot. Of course, and the Eagles were underdogs by
Just
a point and a
math.
half. I go, this is picking up money off the ground. And it was one of the few times as a gambler I made a smart decision.
I hear you. Now, I did want to bring back to, we were talking about the portrayals of characters. One of the examples I wanted was Jack Gleason from Game of Thrones, who plays Joffrey, the little villainous blonde king.
Right.
Everybody hates that character. I celebrated when his character died in there. Absolutely loved it there. But the important thing I wanted to mention there is that he's a very kind, sweet human, just wonderful individual.
Right.
And he portrays this sadistic villain. And,
Interesting.
And a lot of people who were fans had a real difficult time separating the fact and fiction versus that kind of thing. He took a long break from acting for that.
Really?
And it's an example of someone playing a character so well that people have an issue with that. And again, to me, I think that's a great compliment. If I ever played a villain like that kind of thing, I would take it as a compliment every time. I was like, you're a horrible person. That's right. I did it. I'll do it again.
That's interesting, yes.
I would take that as a compliment there.
Yes.
Obviously, he had some struggles with it there.
And you're right, Levi. That shows how good an actor he is. You're right.
It's a
We just saw a Paul Newman movie called HUD, and Paul played a mean creep all through the movie. Whereas he's always kind of an anti-hero. He's always got a little bit of an edge to him, but he has redeeming character in most of them. Butch Cassidy and all, they're criminals, but they did some good things in it. The Sting, they weren't totally bad, but you realize his film with Robert Redford, they were both they were criminals in both those films. All those guys were criminals.
Right.
They were con men and they were robbers, But there was something nice about them, something likable.
Kind of a stretch of character, to see if you could do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important question as an actor, is like you want to challenge yourself to grow in your art.
Right.
To see if you can flex a little bit.
Exactly. Plus, they were both gorgeous, which is my
Right.
latent homosexuality at work. they were both good-looking guys. I mean, these were drop-dead gorgeous guys,
Right. Well, that's good casting right there.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
definitely. And they only did those 2 movies together, but they did 2 movies and they hit a home run both times. They were both classics. Yeah.
Again, on that same connotation is that I feel you have a similar vein there. Again, you're a very kind person, be a great friend to anybody there, but you do play these kind of, as you said, little shits.
Yeah, well, you know where I got that from? One of my heroes, my biggest cartoon hero is Daffy Duck. And Daffy is kind of, he's not he's a crazy guy. He's not that nice guy. Bugs is a much warmer character. Bugs is a nicer character. And that's why Bugs is a little bit more popular than Daffy. But Daffy's my hero. You'll see my character. I steal so much from Daffy Duck. I base my character, all right, you guys did a Polar Express, all right, Santa Claus, I want all those presents. I'm doing basically a Daffy Duck, He's my greatest hero. I love the guy. Yeah, yeah.
It's good inspiration, and I can see it. Like, it bleeds through.
Yeah, okay. Well, I take that as a compliment.
You should, absolutely,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
intended it as a compliment.
Yes, thank you. He's one of the immortals.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, we are getting more towards the end of our interview here, but I did want to ask you kind of a bit of a surprise question that got
Sure.
supplied to me here.
Sure.
You being the absolute diehard Beatle head that you are.
Absolutely,
Which
yeah.
is great. One of my favorite bands
Yes.
of all time. Wanted to hear your thoughts about the inclusion and seclusion of Yoko Ono's involvement towards the end of their career. What did you think about that?
Towards the end, you mean back in '69? You mean those days?
Yeah, when her
Okay,
attributions to the split.
Okay, I don't want to say bad of anybody, and I love John so much. He's my favorite Beatle, and I try to speak well of anybody. And I swear to God, Levi, I've sat down and thought and thought and thought. When you don't like somebody, you have to think of one thing to admire about them. So I try to think of one thing to admire about Yoko Ono. She's not that bright. I don't think she's that nice of a person. I think she was the biggest factor in the Beatles splitting up. I think she's a terrible artist. That's how I see her. She might be a nice person, and I'm missing something, but I don't like her. I thought maybe he's gorgeous something. I saw on Facebook the other day there was a film of her taken back with John. And I go, maybe she's got a dynamite body under, and I saw her body, and I go, what the devil, what's this thing? This is what my mom said. This is what my mom said. And Stevie, my brother, his mom said. He said if a woman finds a man's what he likes in bed, and she can really please a guy in bed, and she hits his button, she goes, she's got that guy. So Stevie and I think she really knew what John liked in bed. She really hit his buttons, and that was how she got him. That's the only thing I can think of. I don't know, because this guy was the greatest artist ever. He created these beautiful songs. It's so cool. He had this quick mind. He'd say these witty things. Yoko never says anything witty. She has no wit, no sense of humor. It doesn't seem like. She's an original, I'll give her that. There's nobody like her. She go, oh yes, da, da, da. And I'll be fair. She had a book called Grapefruit. She wrote a poetry book called Grapefruit, and I read that. It wasn't that bad. The poems were kind of enjoyable. So that would be my favorite Yoko Ono thing, the book Grapefruit. And you know what you do at the end of it? You burn it. She said, when you're done this book, burn it, literally.
Really?
Yeah. So I took the book and I finished it and I set it on fire. So
How
yeah.
cathartic.
Yeah, really.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What a marketable technique.
Yeah, and by the way, to admire Yoko, one other way, she is a survivor. You got to give her credit. She turned 92 this year. She's still going,
Wow.
Yeah, so she's been around longer without John since they got married than John's whole life. You realize John only lived 40 years. He condensed that incredible life in 40 years, and unfortunately, John left us 44 years ago. Yeah.
Surviving something like that is tough.
Yeah.
On
yeah.
so many levels, especially something
and
like
she
that,
never
like
remarried. That was kind of classy. I'm glad she never remarried. It's kind of a tribute to John. And he worshipped her, Yeah.
All right, we are very much towards the end here. I always like to ask people, where can we find you? Are you on the internet? Are you findable?
Yes, I'm on Facebook. Facebook's the only one. I don't do Instagram. I don't do the other stuff, but I'm on Facebook 24/7. You'll see my jokes, my posts. Every day I write them. I write happy birthday, and stuff like that. I put tribute. So please look at my Facebook page. It's hard to fit more friends on because I got a lot more friend requests at this show, and I want to make sure they all get a place. So, and you have to unceremoniously dump somebody.
Ugh.
I'm at 5,000, and you have to go. Okay, well, Mary hasn't been active, so you dump her. And I always say this: if anybody gets dumped as my Facebook friend, and they want to come back on, just please send me a new friend request, and I'll get you back on. That's happened. I put people, and they go, Eddie, why did you get rid of me? And I go, I apologize. I didn't think you were active. And they'll go, no, I give you likes and put comments all the time. So sometimes I make a mistake. It's hard to keep track of 5,000 people.
I got you.
Yeah.
All right, well, you know where to find him, folks.
Yes. Oh, yeah, and I'm at the What's the Chattanooga?
This is ConNooga.
I'm at the ConNooga today. This is our last day here. I've never met a nicer bunch of people, never met nicer fans, so many wonderful people. So come to the ConNooga today. We're here from 10 o'clock until 3 o'clock this afternoon. This is Sunday, our last day, so please come out and say hi. I'd love to meet you.
Absolutely, guys. It's been a fantastic time. I'm Levi's ConSuite Media, and this is Ed Deason.
Yes.
Come see him while you can, folks. You have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.